7:34 a.m. Tuesday, October 14th. It's the Podlib Weekly. Week 7. At this stage, we are halfway to the playoffs. That is, time is so fast. I hope we're all having a good time because it's going to be over sooner than we want it to be. But yeah, we are 7 weeks away from the actual DVFFL playoffs. So it is go time for a lot of these teams, and I think we're kind of to see some of those actions come to life for the last couple of weeks. And I have a segment that is just the remedy for what will be a very fun remaining 3 to 4 weeks of the trade deadline. But before I get to that, the week that was also finished off with a trade that attempted to ruin my segment. Attempted to. And oftentimes I don't usually spend too much time talking about trades because that isn't really, usually there isn't one that happens by the time I record. But of course, there was. Cal trading for Devontae Adams and trading away Rashid Shaheed and Kamini Vidal and sending away 27 draft dollars. That's a significant amount of money, leaving Cal with exactly no extra dollars to play with, which is hilarious. And I think Christian said it in the chat, but if we all hold hands, Cal is now starting 2 wide receivers on the Rams, which in a traditional sense is like, oh wow, you have 2 receivers in the same team, you're a dum-dum. I will say the Rams are one of those teams that's quite productive, and maybe Cal has his medical teams are working overtime right now, and maybe that Puka injury is a little bit more scary than initially reported. That's the only thing I can possibly think. But to Christian's point, we could all hold hands and just not make a move with Cal for anything, or not removing those 2 wide receivers from his team, not splitting them up. And that would kind of be a little awkward for the Rook Cook there. But, we'll see what necessarily happens with the old Adams trade there. I will say Nick is learning all the pitfalls that all DVFFL teams have gone through. Season's not going too well. Well, time to blow up the team. I don't know if Rashid Shaheed and Vidal are going to be the Gandalf over the mountaintops to save what is Nick's team right now. He's averaging a pretty piss poor amount of points right now. Over the last 3 weeks, I think he's averaging 66 points, which is a league low. He is the lowest scoring team in the league right now. The only other team that's really close to that, Mike is right there behind him. He's at 65 points over the last 3 weeks. So those two are not doing great. I think that was kind of capped off with both of them scoring under 54 points this week, which is a feat that I thought we would only see once or twice throughout the year, but the fact that we got it in the same week is pretty crazy. But yeah, Nick is going to go through the same pitfalls of let me get some money. Let me make this worth it. And then you realize you have no more talent left on the team. I do know that Nick is dealing with a lot of injuries. I mean, if you look at his bench, it's a litany of IR and outs and questionables. But at the same time, look at anyone's bench right now, and it's the same story of IRs, outs, and questionables. So if your team doesn't have at least 2 to 3 injuries sitting on your bench, I hate to be a doomer, but they're coming, because it seems like this is the year where you have to stay flexible and you have to have depth. And these teams that do not have depth in key positions are finding themselves in pretty shitty situations. Look at myself. I've got 4 running backs that I went into the year with feeling great on. And now I'm starting Charbonnet and Jerome Ford. So dark times for injuries and dark times for buys. But let's not spend too much time talking about the trade. I think it's a silly trade in general. I'm going to give it the old silly, wacky kind of option there. Cal is really trying to cook up something. He's really pissed off that all of his huffing and puffing about being better than Jaden and losing to Jaden pretty handily. It's not going to look good. So we'll get a pissed off Cal It's convenient that there was a lot of traveling for Cal. We didn't get to hear anything about him huffing and puffing throughout the week. So a convenient travel, convenient trip, an inconvenient loss for our past champion. Let's get into the tiers because there's so much more shit talking to come, and I don't want to waste it just picking off points here and there. So let's go into tier 1. No changes in the names, changes in the orders. We have myself, Christian, Jaden, Dill, and Cal as our tier 1 teams. Myself, I'm 5-1. Christian, Jaden, and Dylan are 4-2, and Cal is the top 3-3 team. All 5 of these teams referenced here are also the top 5 scorers, not in that particular order. So I have Christian as the number 2 seed. He is 4th in scoring. The main reason is that he's played 2 very tough matchups. He played myself last week and won, and he played Dill this week and won. Those were, at the time, 2 of the top scoring teams in the league, and he got the W. So with that, you just kind of get more of a bump from me. I think as a reminder, like these rankings are both indicative of the season that was. I'm very much looking at that little top 5, mid 5, bottom 4 ranking. Like if you've been playing a bunch of bad teams and you're trying to pump yourself up, like you're not going to get pretty high on these rankings. I also want it to be like, I look at it in 4-week windows of like who you've played too. Teams get hot. I think as we get later in the season, it's a little tough when it's like, maybe they were bad, maybe their players are coming back, and now they're playing really well over the last 3 weeks, but their record doesn't show it. I still want to show growth there. So, as we get into the tier 2 teams, you'll probably see that a little bit more. But yeah, Christian's got the bump over Jaden and Dill in terms of like how hot the team is right now. Just those 2 big wins are really, really nice. And I feel like, Christian can look at his schedule now. The top 5 has relatively stayed the same. So you can do kind of a bit of a process of elimination. He's played 4 of the top 5. He represents the 5th of the top 5. So you can safely say, looking at his schedule, that the next coming weeks he's going to have a much easier schedule just because of process of elimination. He's played 4 top 5 teams, and he is he's the 5th. Jaden is kind of the same story. He's played 3 top 5 teams. He had a nice win as well this week, beating Cal. He still gets the bump over Dill there. That's why he sits at the 3 seed. Jaden has scored over 100 points 5 of the last 6 games, so that's worthy of still some significant. I mean, he's going to be a tough out no matter what, and it's crazy that he's scoring that many 100-point games because he's 5th in this tier in terms of scoring. He's only averaging 105 points per game, as the other teams around him are averaging, Christian's averaging 0.2 of a point more, Dill's averaging about 0.4 of a point more, and then Cal's at 107 points in that span. And then Dill falls to the 4 seed. Didn't show out in a big way. I think that everyone was like, oh man, Dill's team is hot as shit right now. He had rattled off several 100-point games there, and then he just put up an absolute doo-doo stinker, 73 points. But it also kind of comes with the territory when you're starting Jaden Blue as your second running back. So no one should be technically surprised that sort of took place there. But yeah, Dill kind of falls back to earth. I think I'll be curious to see what happens this coming week as he kind of like gets the team back up. Sometimes teams just have a bad week where it just doesn't all click. And you could definitely say that Dill averaging, getting 73 points last week was not a good week. So I'm interested to see how his team bounces back. And then Cal, seeing the 5 seed, he's rattled off several 100-point wins. That was very exciting for him. But the average amount of points he was receiving against, the points against, the last 4 weeks, 89, 81, 72. And then he meets a foe like Jaden who could put up 100 points, no problem. 113 points get put up against him, and Cal's team falters with 98 points. So, again, Cal, move on. You'll have multiple times to try to get higher than Jaden and Christian. I know that you feel internally in your heart that you're the number 1 team in the league. But if I had a ranking that just had what you thought, it wouldn't be a very exciting ranking in general. And then lastly, in this tier is myself, 5-1. Rattled off another win. Got a little hairy. Did the thing that you're not supposed to do, which was make a roster decision like 5 minutes before. the kickoff, which anytime I do that, you'd think it'd be absolutely thrilling because you're just the heart's racing. You're like very active. I know everything about all the players that were available because I looked at all of them. The heart got a little racy there for a bit with Tez Johnson as he had received no catches as we went into the second half. And at the time, I didn't even realize while watching the game, this is very true because I'm trying this thing where I'm not like having the sleeper app open. I'm just like watching games. That's the whole point of this. I don't need to be staring at my screen and not watching the games, just watching, decimals rise. I didn't realize that Brandon had Tonjes in the tight end for the 49ers. So there's a difference when you're watching and you're thinking to yourself, it's just my player. And so you're just keying in on one game. And in fact, I just turned on the 49ers and Bucks game. I didn't even watch Red Zone during that time. And then finally Tez scores. And I'm like, oh my God. A little shout, little fist pump. And then I look at the app and I was like, my God, am I still down by 5? And I didn't even realize like Tonjes had been just kind of slowly chipping away and adding to that. So there was a bit of excitement for Tez, obviously very much excitement for Tez. And then a very kind of sad, like, oh, shit, because I thought all I needed was like a touchdown there, and that would have like made up the difference, and then I would have to face Zach Ertz on Monday. But then there was Tonjes. So for a brief moment there, I was kind of depressed, and then Sunday night happened. Very exciting to have something like that, a dart throw, work out. Oftentimes it doesn't. It often doesn't. I looked at, at this point, it doesn't really matter. No one will believe me, but I did look at Booty, and I was like, maybe Booty. But I didn't make the connection strong enough that, he's a big Louisiana guy. He was playing in New Orleans. That made a lot of sense that he was going to show out in that way. Also, the Saints aren't very good, so that also could have clicked, but that didn't click in my head. I was so slanted at that point. I was looking at Jeremy McNichols. I stared at him. I think I picked him up, and I had him for a brief second, and it just felt terrible. That's a word for the wise. Do not do that. It worked out. I feel like I got a pass. Usually anytime that situation happens when you're slanted and you're picking up a player 2 minutes before kickoff, that player that you often pick up, unless it's like suddenly an announced injury at warm-ups, which it seems like, the Colts are the ones that they have the most dangerous warm-ups in the game, with Richardson going on IR because of an elastic band, and then Charvarius Ward getting himself knocked out literally with a concussion in warm-ups. I don't know what the fuck the Colts are doing before their warm-ups, so they're in game shape at that point. But oftentimes when you pick up a player like that, it always ends up as a 0, and I got lucky. Lastly, tier 2, we have Alec, Brandon, Peyton, Jesse, and Nick. Again, no new names in here, but just a definite reshuffling of a lot of names. So we have Alec, Brandon, Peyton, and Nick are the 3-3 teams. Jesse is the only 2-4 team. Jesse's sitting in the 9 seed, though, above Nick. So we'll start, I guess, from the reverse. Nick talked about this already. Those 3 games that he started the season with when he was getting 100 points, he was sitting in the tier 1 teams for tier 1 group for a while. Then the bottom fell out with a 74-75 loss. That's going to be tough. And then I was kind of optimistic, and he held the 6th seed for a period of time there. But he was kind of hanging around the tier 1s for a bit, hoping for that bounce. Didn't happen. Got a 72-point outing. Not great. And then last week, following it up with a 53-point outing. Super not great. And I guess it's all very indicative of Trey Benson going on IR, but it seems like that moment happened. Nick's kind of squad has fallen apart. Aaron Jones is also on IR as well. So he's reliant on James Cook, and James Cook is on bye this week. So not great. Can see why he made the Vidal trade, but we'll see if that's actually of use. Again, watching him against the Dolphins is one thing. Watching him against actual NFL defenses is another. The Dolphins have allowed a running back 1 every single week this year. So it's obviously a testament that he was able to pull off a running back 1 performance against the Dolphins. But the Dolphins are absolutely garbage. So it's really kind of like looking at something with a big weight sitting on the other end of it. So we'll see what Vidal can do against any other team other than the Dolphins. Keep our eyes out on that one. Jesse sits above Nick for obvious reasons. Jesse's coming to life a little bit. Had some bad luck with the scores though. He's got an unfortunate run of he had a 90-point outing 4 weeks ago, lost. 76 points is not going to get you a win. 109 last week, and then 96 this week, and a tough loss against Pate. And because of that, he lost to Pate. He's going to sit below Pate. The one thing to look out for here for Jesse is that his 2 wins are against bottom 4 teams. He has not won against anyone in the Tier 2 or Tier 1 section. He's played 3 Tier 1 teams, so not particularly great outings there. And that kind of leads right into Peyton. Peyton is sort of coming to life a little bit. Got the random 54-point game out of the way, which I definitely subsequently dropped Peyton down to like the 10 seed, and then he's kind of risen back up again. But Peyton is starting to come to life. He's scoring the 8th most amount of points in the league, which is playoff worthy. Still a little bit below the league average, but still there. And I think that he is starting to get stacking some kind of like. I mean, he's 2-2 over the last 4 weeks, but I feel a little bit more hope around the team. 105 one week, 96 another week, 97 this week. Like, you're starting to see a little bit of a cruising altitude. And that's all that I'm looking for is just consistency in scoring, which isn't totally happening for Brandon. It was a really close one between Brandon and Peyton right now. Brandon sits slightly higher than Peyton. Maybe I'm still just holding on to Brandon's time in Tier 1 as like a bit of a bias. Brandon has had some very close games the last 2 weeks, so I kind of looked at this as a bit of a coin flip. He's also got a top 5 win as well. But yeah, you look at this as a coin flip. The last 2 weeks could have gone either way. They could have been L's, they could have been W's. He got beaten this week, significantly. So I think like the difference between Peyton and Brandon is like very marginal. I mean, like a 1/10 of a point. And I think it really has a lot to do with the fact that Brandon has won against a top 5 team. Peyton has not won. Brandon is the last team, I think, in this section that has won against a top 5 team. So I feel like you got to hold on. He's holding the line a little bit here because everyone from Peyton, Jesse, and Nick and below has not won a single game against a Tier 1 team, but Brandon has. And then we have Alec. Alec has kind of risen up from the ashes of sorts. The last 2 weeks is a very Cal-like consistency, over 120 points the last 2 weeks. So he's averaging six amount of points per game. He definitely sits on that cusp between Tier 1 and Tier 2. Potentially a loss up there and another win from Alec can definitely squeeze him up into the top 5. He definitely has he's averaging 100 points, which that does something. It does something for you. But yeah, he's looking very formidable. Rico Dowdle has been an absolute revelation for Alec. I don't know how the Panthers go back to the Chuba Hubbard plotting machine. And, as fate would have it for us just grilling Alec on having his handcuffs already set coming out of the draft, which is a strategy that no one enjoys, it has been very useful for Alec. For the Rico Dowdle and the Chuba Hubbard, which is just a sentence that I never expected to say at this point of the year. I should also note that for all those teams that are 3-3, you have a 60% chance of making the playoffs. For the teams that are 2-4, you have a 33% chance of making the playoffs. And I should have said this for the top. If you're 4-2, you have a 90% chance. And if you're 5-1 like myself, 88% chance. Thank you, Brandon. Tier 3. We have Cody, Tanner, Mike, and Mitch. Again, the same group of names, just shuffling them in a different order. Cody has slowly but surely risen out of some level of bad. He's the only team here that's 3-3. He's averaging the 12th amount of points a game per game, though. So it's not exactly an inspiring 3-3. I still can't fully get myself behind the idea that he can be breaking into the top, the Tier 2 world. No offense, Cody, but your team isn't super inspiring. The best outing we've had over the last 4 weeks is 92 points. The lowest is 78. There's a bit of a range of outcomes there, but averaging 80 points a game isn't particularly great, but the wins are wins. And so when it gets down to the playoffs and that kind of conversation, Cody's very much in the mix. Tanner, like I said a couple weeks ago, underlying stats for Tanner's team were not bad, and now the W's are starting to come his way a little bit. Again, not the most inspiring win totals, still under the league average by a significant margin, about 5 points underneath the league average. Even more on last week's win with 86 and the league average is 94. But a win is a win, and Tanner will get him however he can. If he gets one more win, he gets really frisky in the same conversation with all the teams above him. And he's got, again, the underlying stats are kind of in his favor, so I could see him kind of rise out of it. The only thing to note is that Tanner is I think he is the only team that has yet to play a top 5 team. So we'll see what happens when he plays a top 5 team, what happens to the squad. There is hope, though, because his only 2 wins were against mid-5 teams, and he has really only played 1 bottom 4 team. So if Tanner's schedule continues to be light, he can kind of make his way through. But I feel like it's not going to be light for very long, and I feel like this week he plays Cal. So he's going to put that top 5 record to the test against Cal this week. Let's see what happens. Mike, talked about it early on. The points are just not coming anymore. 49 points is not great. That's the lowest point score for the year so far. It's just, I don't know. It's not looking good. He's averaging 78 points a game. It's the lowest amount in the league. There's just not much I can say right now, Mike. It's not good. It's just not good. Mitch, also not good. It was looking hopeful there for a second. Drake London almost fired Mitch back into something, but now he's 1-5, this is just a continuation. Again, like I've said all year, it's a continuation of the year before with Mitch. We're at mirrored records at this point. This time last year, Mitch was 1-5. He is 1-5 now. He finished last year again 3-11. Add 2 more losses to that, he was 3-13. He got the win to get out of the Sacco. He's 4-14. He's lost. Now he's add 1-5 to that. He's 5-19 over the last 2 years essentially. It's not very good. Not very good at all. So Mitch has got a lot of work to do. It looked like his team is starting to come to life a little bit. The points are sort of there, but he's still averaging the 13th most amount of points, 79 points per game, far below the league average. So I don't know if hope is necessarily springing eternal in Mitch's team right now. Also, Mitch, whatever's going on, hopefully everything is well. Not having you in the group chat sucks. Not stirring the pot and everything like that. So hopefully we can get you back in there, stirring the pot and doing the things that you do so well, even in the face of danger. But hopefully all is well, and get you back in there and get you off the bench and talking some more shit. Weekly points, blah blah blah. Not much happening there. Playoff leaders. The narrowing is happening for kickers. The only thing I want to note out of this, from a trend standpoint, is it seems like last year's kicking was a lot more significant than this year's kicking. Kicking seems to be generally down a little bit. We have a lot of teams that are close to the playoff average, but using that as an indicator of where is the scoring going this year, it seems like for some reason, scoring is pretty down. We only have 3 teams above the playoff line for kicking. Ironically, Cal is one of those teams which has just got to piss off everybody else below him, because every single week he drops a kicker and picks up a new kicker. Well, actually, I take that back. I realize what he did. He has Fairbairn off. I thought for some reason he was doing the whole kicker not having a kicker, the old Gare trick where you just drop your kicker immediately, add another bench spot, hold, and then make a decision on Sunday who your kicker is with whoever remains. I forgot about Fairbairn. My bad. But yeah, Cal's holding strong up there with Fairbairn, Brandon with Dicker, and myself with Aubrey. I would say those are probably the 3 kickers that come to my mind as some of the best, especially their situations, all in domes. Teams have generally an okay offense, and if they don't have an okay offense, the offense stalls out happily all the time in field goal range. So, good sign for those who invested in some kickers. Defense, 6 teams above the line, generally the same. Tight end, same thing. 6 teams above the line. I think the biggest thing is that everyone, again, use this chart, these 6 charts for your leaders. I cannot tell you how helpful it is, because it gives you an idea of what you need to do to fix your team. There's no better way to indicate that you're hey, I'm not doing well in wide receiver. Maybe I go get a wide receiver. So when you start looking, also it's a great way to judge trades that took place, to see where help is needed. Cal making a trade for Devontae Adams doesn't make a ton of sense when he's second in wide receiving scoring. Obviously, like I said, he might know something about Puka. I don't know, but that's the case. But Nick trading away a really good wide receiver, probably his best. It doesn't make a lot of sense either because he's only sitting at the eighth speed. He only has the eighth amount of points in wide receiving. So, might want to hold on to that. I guess he's willing to sacrifice those points for running back, which he sits at 12. So you can kind of see some of the motives behind the for what people are trying to do. I don't know where I was going with that. All right. Historical stats. Again, I would always shout out if anyone's significantly close to anything significant. Jesse's 4 losses away from 100 losses. Peyton is 2 losses away from 100 losses. And Dill is 7 losses away from 100 losses. Those are kind of the most significant loss categories. Peyton's 5 wins away from 100 wins. Christian's 10 wins away from 100 wins. And that is it. Cody and I have mirrored records, but in reverse. Cody has 79 wins and 114 losses. I have 114 wins and 79 losses. Interesting. Yeah, other than that, everything else has been updated. You know what to do. Let's get into the segment. So, this is that time of year, everyone's favorite time of year, where I spend ungodly amounts of time figuring out what's wrong with all of your teams and providing you guys some trades. So we're going to call this segment Hole Fillers. And this is going to be Act 1 of Hole Fillers. Hole Fillers are going to be, I'm going to give you 7 trades. Traditionally speaking, I usually break this segment into 14 trades, and I'm not going to do that because you're going to hear your side, regardless of every trade serves 2 people. So instead of doing 14 this time and then some smatterings next couple weeks from now, we're going to do 7 trades today, and we're going to do 7 trades closer to the trade deadline. But these 7 trades should help everybody out. And as I say every single year, if any of you use exactly what I have said, throw me just a free fab dollar. Just one fab dollar. I've done all the work, and it's happened a little bit last year. We had some ideas of mine that came through. I need to get my own expectations set that not all of you are going to do the trades this week. It is ideal because you have my fresh take as to why you should do the trade this week. But I understand that some of these trades are going to take some time. So hopefully you guys take this with some love in your heart, and you consider it. And if you do a trade, truly, if someone sent me a fab dollar, I'd be eternally grateful because I know that coming up with the right trade for all these teams isn't very easy. It's why a good portion of you all don't do it because it's so hard. So I understand. I get it. It's hard. It's hard out there. So let me help you out a little bit. Last couple caveats here. Obviously, I don't know your team. I don't know what goes on in your fucking heads more than you guys do. So if you hear something that I say and you're like, that's stupid, great. I'm glad you think that's stupid. But consider this. I'm an outside resource. I suspended my own disbelief of I'm going to be, a mercenary and try to help out this trade. Some of these trades I don't even want to say because I actually think they could significantly help both teams or significantly help a team in a way that I don't want to see. Because again, I don't want to have you guys be good. I want you guys to be bad. But these are good trades in my opinion. This is me third partying this whole thing. So take that for a grain of salt. But think about that. When you get all fucking puckery about it, think about this is someone who's outside of my own head saying I should do this. Maybe I should do this. And I'm not Darth Nuttiusing these. You'll hear, you'll see, you'll know. The other thing I should note is that there is draft cash associated with some of these trades. The number that I'm throwing out there, if you feel like it's too low or too high, great, make the adjustment. I don't give a shit. But it's just an illustrative number to get something talking. I can't say these 3 players for this one player and then there's no, cash associated with it. I'll try. I think I have one trade that doesn't have cash involved. So I'm trying to make it happen. But as Wilson Time would happily tell you, it's hard out there to do that, even though, I'm sure we'll get some preaching about, the purity of no draft trading. And I'm still upset that we didn't even get a little moment of a segment on that Laporta Kelsey trade for Wilson Time. We fucking spent 15 minutes talking about Tony goddamn Pollard. So hopefully we don't have to do that again this week. I pray. So let's get to it. Hole Filler Act 1. First trade. Mike trades with Alec. Mike trades Herbert, A.J. Brown, for Daniel Jones, Dobbins, and 17 draft dollars. So that means that Mike is getting Daniel Jones, Dobbins, and 17 draft. Alex is getting Herbert and A.J. Brown. Why for Mike? The honeymoon for Herbert is it's kind of over right now with Mike. You know, the first couple of weeks of what Herbert was, MVP candidate, the whole thing, that looked awesome. It's not really coming through that now. And that's no fault of Herbert. I mean, his line is absolutely garbage. So it's hard to say this, that, and the other. He's still very serviceable. Getting over 18 points is great. But I think like what Mike needs from a team right now, Herbert is not able to deliver. And that's a theme for A.J. Brown as well. You know, Mike doesn't have the time to wait for Jalen Hurts to realize that A.J. Brown is on the team and that Jahan Dotson isn't a viable target or Dallas Goedert isn't the only target. And if that doesn't happen, you know, Mike is just losing time. The one thing that Alec could probably help, you know, it could help out Alec is having another just big-bodied wide receiver to join, you know, the likes of Quentin Johnston and Kendrick Bourne. I mean, it's a pretty dark wide receiver room at that point. You know, we're still waiting on CeeDee Lamb to come back. Quentin Johnston is hurt, and Chris Godwin isn't really happening right now. So I think in a best case scenario, when you know all things are healthy, having A.J. Brown and CeeDee Lamb is really exciting. And I mean, obviously, you can see what the tie is here. Quentin Johnston needs his quarterback stack. He needs his Q stack going. So that's one of the reasons why you know, Alec would be interested in this, but I'm supposed to try to do the why for Mike. So Mike, you know, the season's not going great. Herbert's not doing super great. He needs him to do better. Wide receiving core, A.J. Brown, not really coming through. So what Mike needs is he needs to get some other help. Javonte needs help. Crazy sentence to say, but Javonte needs help. And Daniel Jones has been absolutely serviceable, getting about the same results as a Herbert in the world, maybe with the chance of a rushing touchdown here and there. Maybe doing better than Herbert, to be honest. So that's something that's worth it. Dobbins is kind of like the extra running back that Alec could float, and this is exactly what you do to get more talent back. So Mike can get another running back, and he gets 17 draft dollars, which is the exact amount of cash that he needs to get to 200. And if Mike's season's not going to go well, he needs to start to think about how he gets back to a positive number or on the right side of 200 before it's too late on some of these players where he has to sell off like Javonte or someone much larger. So this is, I think, a trade that gets Mike into a space where it solves one hole, gets Dobbins to fill in that running back 2 hole. Daniel Jones is a very serviceable QB to replace Herbert, and he gets 17 draft dollars, which means he gets back to even, which is great. For Alec, he needs a QB that is going to, if Alec has any hopes for the playoffs, which I know he does, he needs a kind of a QB that can play like an elite QB. I don't know how long the Daniel Jones experiment is going to last, but at the same time, there's something about just the comfort of a name being in your starting lineup, even if that means, you know, that person isn't playing super well. This kind of happened a little too quickly for CJ Stroud, but you know, CJ Stroud rookie year became really fucking good, and then last year it felt comfortable to have CJ Stroud as your starting QB, even though he wasn't playing well. You're just thinking, it's going to get better, and that's not the case. I think like with Alec, he saw how good Herbert could be. Well, that line is going to get better. Joe Alt, you know, will be back. This is not the end of the world. And Joe Alt was playing when Herbert was looking like a god, and Joe Alt is just very good as a tackle. So when he comes back and some of these other things get shored up, I think Herbert can kind of go back to the way he was in teaching and preaching. And Alec can kind of definitely get that. Obviously gets the stack. And then, like I said already, getting Brown to join Lamb and QJ. QJ is great. Also, Alec has exactly $17 over 200. So to send this off, he gets back to 200, not the end of the world, but he adds talent to the team, and he gets a QB, and he gets a wide receiver he can be happy with. So that's Herbert, A.J. Brown for Daniel Jones, Dobbins, and 17 draft between Mike and Alec. Pretty good. All right, this one's a smaller one. Jaden trades with Jesse. Jaden trades Jacoby Myers, 7 draft dollars for Kincaid. So why for Jaden? Like Waller's rap career, I don't think that this current run of Waller is going to last very long. Jaden is wasting valuable space with 3 tight ends on his roster right now between John Johnson, Taysom Hill, and fucking Darren Waller. Kincaid is simply a more comfortable solution that kind of opens up Jaden's roster. If Jaden wants to make this trade and get Kincaid in the squad. He can drop Taysom Hill and he can drop Juwan Jennings. He can keep Waller if he wants to see the Waller thing play out. But I think I would rather have a touchdown-dependent tight end be from Josh Allen throwing the ball than it would be from Tua throwing the ball in the Dolphins. Just a hot take. I know that Jaden has been trying to solve this tight end position for a while now. Waller has sort of made it work. I know that he had to drop a cool amount of fab to get it done, but Jaden has kind of climbed up a little bit. Let's keep this all in mind, though, that Jaden is averaging 4.7 points from the tight end position. That's good for 13th in this league. He's got 2 touchdowns from Waller, which is definitely very helpful, but ultimately, I think Jaden's going to have to make another significant move to get this, and Kincaid is unfortunately just not needed for Jesse. Kraft is already through his bye week. Kincaid is on his bye week right now. Kincaid's a little banged up. It all makes sense, in my opinion, for Jaden to kind of spend what he needs to spend to get that tight end solve, use Waller for one more week, and keep this train going. For the Y for Jesse, again, this is kind of a luxury position. I know that there's been ideas of Jesse floating, starting 2 tight ends again, which is nice, but it's still a very low-scoring position. It's not the best use of it, in my opinion, to do that. So Jesse gets off with some money. He gets Jakobi Meyers. This is obviously subjective, but I believe that Jakobi Meyers is probably a trade candidate for a team that needs him, maybe the Steelers. So I think it's a bit of a bet on that. It's also a bit of a bet that like maybe the Raiders get better. But Jakobi Meyers is just a supplemental third wide receiver that can offer more consistency. Hasn't been the fucking best, I will admit. Hasn't been the best this year. But that's what the 7, and again, the number is relative, but that's what the draft dollars are for. Kind of gives Jesse, doesn't need a backup tight end that could actually be getting him money. He gets a pretty good haul for a Kincaid that basically costs him nothing to have. Gets a third wide receiver that if he gets traded to a team that is better using their wide receiving or their talent in general, then Meyers is significantly more value. I'm not entirely sure what team that is, but even if he stays on the Raiders, maybe the Raiders fucking figure it out. Bowers could help massively. Maybe a QB change would help. Meyers played really great with AOC in the previous years, so it could get better. I think it's kind of just an upside, just trading upside for upside. But currently, Jesse's wide receiving core is a little tough. Juwan Jennings is hurt, Mims is Mims, and Coleman is inconsistent. So having a third wide receiver that isn't those 3 names would be kind of lovely to join the Chases of the world and the Nico Collins of the world. And again, it's a nice problem to have, but I just think like Meyers offers a little bit more upside than those 3 names, in my opinion. And he could still keep Coleman. Yay. So, again, the trade here is Jaden trades with Jesse. He trades Meyers in 7 drafts for Kincaid. Okay, let's get a bigger trade out there. This is Cody trades with Mitch. Cody trades ETN, Henderson, Golden, and 25 draft dollars for Jahmyr Gibbs and Hollywood Brown. So why for Cody? He is trading away a good swath of his team. And I feel like Cody's kind of taking a new approach. He's taking a bit of a Calvin approach, sort of, where he's going to get like guys that he likes, big stars, depth, fuck it. Just stars, names, and stars. So getting Gibbs on the team would really align a lot of Cody's like chakras, so to speak. Cody loves Gibbs, and it's been pretty hard to watch Gibbs not play on Cody's team. And I think that as Cody's been rebuilding his team as the season progresses, he's willing to trade whatever it takes to get there, and he'll deal with the consequences later. I could see the cash going a little higher just to get this trade done, but Cody essentially gets his running back 1 for the year, and he can roll the dice as Gainwell as running back 2. Not the worst thing in the world. He's got like kind of a mixture of guys that are just kind of the same there, but he's got something there, and Gainwell's passes by, so that's helpful also to have someone who's going to be consistently there the entire time. And you get Hollywood Brown back, which is just kind of a hedge that like maybe the Rice thing shakes things out differently. He's just a usable wide receiver, more usable potentially than Golden is. The Y for Mitch, though, is a little different. The season hasn't been easy, hasn't been going well. He's obviously 1-5. Gibbs, basically in how Mitch's team is designed, Gibbs has to be a mega god, and he has not been that at all. So I think there's a bit of like a, not necessarily a buyer's remorse, but Mitch isn't probably pleased with what Gibbs is doing. It's not the same Gibbs that, again, he expected, and this is the Gibbs that, Cody remembers from last year. So Mitch's major problem is that he just doesn't have a lot of talent surrounding the team. Pacheco's been playing quite a bit. He's not very good. Ollie Gordon has gotten his time in the sun. He's not very good. Mitch just needs more guys that are not the guys that are currently on his team, and Cody can provide kind of the rest of that. Giving him ETN, who is a starting running back, which would be something that Mitch has familiarity with ETN and watching Brian Thomas, and which I don't think is an issue. If Mitch is already comfortable having T-Law running the offense. And having his best receiver being related to T-Law in that sense, then he shouldn't have any problems with the actual productive part of the Jags, which is the running game. So getting ETN just gives another option there, probably a more exciting option. Getting Henderson is another upside play. Again, we know that Antonio Gibson is out for the year. Ramondre Stevenson is bad. So Henderson should theoretically have a higher upside arrow. Additionally to that, Mitch, famously a Packer fan, ? Also gets Golden out of this deal, and he gets $25. So it's a significant haul, in my opinion, to get off of Gibbs. Again, the money could change. That puts Cody somewhere in the 170 range, which I think he could kind of be happy with, just to be a little bit more frisky. And then Mitch starts to cruise right back up to the upper 200s. Again, the season's not going very well, so Mitch sitting at $195 right now isn't going to play great. He needs to start to correct it, because 1-5 is your playoff hopes are basically 2 losses away from being gone. I think if you get to 7 losses, you're not going to make the playoffs this year. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are 7-7 that can make it in, but Mitch has got to either start winning a shit ton of games, but he cannot take any more L's. And I think this is just a way to kind of get some money, cash in on Gibbs. You still got another player you can cash in on here and there, but you get a significant haul, and maybe these 3 guys can kind of bounce back a little bit and kind of help Mitch out there. So that was Cody trades ETN, Henderson, Golden, 25 draft for Gibbs and Hollywood Brown. Next, big trade here, and almost got fucked up by this morning, but let's do this one. Dill trades with Nick. I'm really proud of this trade. I'm not going to lie. This one I think I cooked on. Dill trades Odunze, Mason, Marks, and 17 draft dollars for Cook. Initially, the draft. Now, keep in mind with this one, the draft cash is capped at 17. Nick cannot take any more unless he buys something, which I don't anticipate him doing. So why for Dill? Dill has an affinity for James Cook. He's ruined his seasons. He's ruined seasons for James Cook. He did this last year anyway. He's in an arms race for talent. And he, I think, would love to look at a roster that is Jonathan Taylor and James Cook as his 2 starting running backs. Everything else doesn't fucking matter. He'll figure it out from the wide receiver position. And all this costs him really is a lot of depth. And I think it's a big bet that Dill can make. But I think ultimately it's just that drive to get a running back 2 that is something of significance. I don't think that, as much as it's been fun at times for Jordan Mason or Woody Marks, it isn't just it's not a long-term thing that's going to happen there. I don't know if Dill's totally set on those are my playoff dudes. I think he wants something next to Taylor ASAP, and Cook is definitely, if you want to if the vultures are circling a little bit, picking off Devontae Adams, maybe James Cook is next, and getting a $17 draft haul is a kind of a steal. I think it's just going to mean more players are going to be added, and I think with Odunze, Mason, and Marks, it's quite a bit. And the why for Nick is actually kind of really sound, if you ask me. The wheels are coming off, and it's related all to no running back depth. And this move itself does several things. One is it shores up his running backs for the rest of the year. Both Mason and Marks are past their buys, with the Vikings and Texans having doing it last week. So that means that Nick is running out these guys uninterrupted with for the rest of the year, which is exactly what you need. If you're in Nick's space, you cannot possibly have another week of making a trade to get a bunch of depth, get some more running back depth, and then having that depth also be out on a bye would suck. But he doesn't have to deal with that. So these 2 guys, some combination of Mason and Marks, are going to be on the field the entire time, with Nick, which is great. Also, it shores up and secures the Vikings backfield. Mason, handcuff, Jones Jones sitting on Nick's bench for the entirety of the season. If he comes back, you have 2 running backs that you can possibly play. It seems like that they both can be productive. If not, you have absolute security, which again Nick has not had. This still means that when Trey Benson comes back, you're still adding Trey Benson to this fold of Benson, Marks, and Mason, some combination of that. There's still hope within that running core doing this move. And then lastly, this secures the Odunze Caleb stack. Caleb looks functional. Wasn't a great game. That's the Odunze that I remember seeing last night. But he almost scored a touchdown. Penalty waved it off. So there's something happening there. There's an Odunze Caleb stack that could be there, and I feel like there's Odunze has been performing extremely well. Caleb's stuck on Nick's team for some reason, and I feel like the Jordan Love thing can probably be dropped at this point. I think it's safe to say that Caleb's the option. Obviously, use Love for the bye that comes up for. Oh, they already have. No, Bears are past their bye. Another great example. Odunze is also past his bye. So all of these players that Nick is receiving, all 3 of these guys are past their bye. In exchange for a guy who's currently on his bye, and he gets some money after that. So this puts Nick maxed out at 250 if he does this move, which is great. And Dill gets kind of a, not like a discount, but, $17 for James Cook and a bunch of depth isn't half bad. So that, again, looks like a Odunze, Mason, Marks, and 17 draft for Cook between Dill and Nick. Next trade, we have Christian trades with Tanner. This one's kind of a doozy. Christian trades Pollard, Metcalf, Ray Davis for Chase Brown, Devonta Smith, Hunt, and 10 draft dollars. The why for Christian is very simple, and it comes down to just the things that makes Christian just lose sleep at night. Christian can't stand being under $200 for more than a week. Like he did the Pollard trade. We're a couple weeks now. We're like 2 weeks in of being under 200. We know that Christian's comfy place is very much plus 200. He hasn't been sub 200 since 2023. And we're sitting at that moment right now where he's sitting $10 under. Doesn't love it, I'm sure. Doesn't love it. What he gets out of this is he gets his cash back, the cash that he used to get Pollard. So he's basically recouping that while sending Pollard away, which I don't blame him. The Titans are into absolute mess. He gets back Chase Brown, who you have to hope talent-wise is better than Pollard. Situation-wise, it's about equal between the Titans and the Bengals, but I think you'll take the more talented player over that. Devonta Smith obviously had an affinity for in the past. I think out of all the receivers for the Eagles, or out of all the receiving options, I for some reason have more hope in Devonta Smith figuring it out before A.J. Brown figures it out for that team. So let's take that for what you will. And then Kareem Hunt, a very familiar face on Christian's team. Serviceable, unfortunately serviceable, I should say. Just offers a little bit more upside there than Ray Davis. But then, again, most importantly, he's getting to that 200 mark, which just can make him a lot more comfortable. Not the greatest haul I'll admit, not the greatest haul for Metcalf in the world. Maybe the money can get increased. Again, this is just illustrative money. The money could increase. And the best part of it all is that money can increase because Tanner has some of the most money in the league right now. So there's obviously some flexibility to make a trade like this work. So why for Tanner? Tanner finally gets an alpha wide receiver 1 with Metcalf. Obviously, Tanner has a shit ton of wide receivers that are just, sure, you be number 1. Sure, you be number 1. Or as I like to say, wide receiver 3s moonlighting as wide receiver 2s. He gets to upgrade his running back 3 spot with Pollard, a familiar friend, gets off of the Chase Brown business, and he gets Ray Davis back, the cannibal. So that's a big win as well for Tanner as well. I can see Tanner being a little bit more motivated by this trade, but he has the most money to blow, and Christian is keen to get back to his comfy place with plus 200. So I think Tanner is the perfect match to do so, even if some of the pieces here need to change. I think some structure around this is going to probably be the answer. Another trade that was almost ruined last night. We have Cal trades with Brandon, and I had to make a quick adjustment to this morning, but we have Cal trading Dart, Harvey, and Adams for Lamar Jackson. No cash, because Cal has no cash at all. So we have to use player for player. And look at it here. Watch me go with this player for player. Cal is a big name hunter. He wants to go to Fantasy Pros each week and see all of his players' names at the top of the weekly rankings. Lamar Jackson, CMC, Scattaboo, Puka Nacua, Jefferson, Warren. It all services Cal in the best way to make him feel nice and comfy. And the one thing that Cal is missing this year is a quarterback. He's been playing around with Justin Fields. It has been hilarious to see him fail every single week as to which one is the starting running back, which one should be the starter. Just for everyone at home to know, every team in the DVFFL has over 10 plus touchdowns from the quarterback position, except for Cal. He's got 6. That's the same amount of touchdowns that Mitch has from his running backs, and Mitch is last in running backs right now in scoring, and he has 6 touchdowns on the year from there. Cal has failed at every turn to start the right one. I think he's only had 1 week in which he maximized the points correctly. I think he might be getting sick of that. So he would want to get someone who is the most available quarterback in the league. I think Lamar could possibly be that. He's obviously on bye this week. Cal doesn't give a shit about byes. It's all about the end game. So I could see Cal making the move here, and then just, it's one of those things where like, oh, wow, okay. And then, you look back and like, oh, shit. Now, Lamar Jackson's on the team with all these other guys. And if Lamar is back to full health, it's a pretty exciting team. Lamar, CMC, Puka, Scattaboo, Jefferson, Warren. Pretty good core. But, it all takes 2 to tango. And the why for Brandon is really kind of related to the fact that Darnold has been playing pretty fucking good. 20-plus points the last 2 weeks. He's been averaging a significant amount of points. I think he's he's top 10 in scoring. I don't know if Sleeper has updated their rankings yet. I'm clicking. He's 11. Close. But yeah, he's had some great weeks. He's only had, the first week was a dud, but after that, very serviceable. And in response, what Brandon gets in the return is like he gets another running back option with Harvey, and he gets Devontae Adams, who kind of shores up the starting lineup a little bit. Brandon's been floating out Kendre Miller as a flex sort of thing. I think having Adams, Worthy, and McConkey is a pretty decent wide receiving core. You have Harvey in the background that can now you can say that, Brandon's got a pretty nice running back room. He's got Chubb, he's got Warren, Hall, Harvey, and Miller. So he's got some plug and play options. He can also package some guys up if he wants to and get some money off of that. And then Kittle's coming back very soon. So then you can look at a lineup that's like, Darnold, serviceable, very serviceable, but then a running room of like Hall and Warren, Worthy, Adams, McConkey, Kittle, pretty good with depth, which is something that Brandon rarely ever has, is depth. So I think the why is pretty clear there. Obviously, I think Brandon would love to get some money off of Lamar, but to get this amount of, and also he gets Dart. I should fucking miss that point. If Darnold isn't juicing up Brandon that much, Dart also is looking like a very functional and very good quarterback that loves to run. He's got like 10 rushing attempts over the last couple games. So clearly he's kind of the supplement of Lamar Jackson there in terms of the running game. And I would be surprised if Lamar runs as much coming off this injury as he was prior. So this could be a bigger upside play for Brandon to get Dart, Harvey, and Adams for Lamar Jackson. Last trade, it's myself and Peyton. This one is I trade away Charbonnet, Garrett Wilson for Evans, Robinson, and $5 draft dollars. That's Brian Robinson Jr. for anyone who's following along at home. So in this one, for me, I get a wide receiver upgrade with Mike Evans, a high-quality cuff with Brian Robinson Jr., and a little draft bump that's worth it at this point of the season. Getting JSN and Evans to be paired together is lovely. I feel like I'm taking on a pretty big risk here with a hamstring injury on an older player with Mike Evans in a season that's looking like a wide receiving season from hell with Chris Godwin, Ibuka, and Evans all being hurt. So there's an inherent risk being taken there with Evans, and that's why for Peyton there's a bit of a risk that he's also taking with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson obviously is hurt right now. We don't know the severity of it, but there's something happening here with Garrett Wilson. But Garrett Wilson also was leading the AFC in yards going into this week. So he is teaching and preaching. And the one thing as a why for Peyton, since getting Garrett Wilson all those years ago from Christian, Peyton's face has been one of those interested owners. You know, you look at the page, there's like interested owners, and it shows like the profile pic. Peyton has been there for the entire time for Garrett Wilson. So I know that there's some affinity or interest there. Obviously, the injury takes a little shine off of this. I don't love that, but I also think that Peyton shares. Peyton is a team that starts 3 running backs weekly due to the fact that he has so much depth, you know, with Kenneth Walker and Achane and Bill. So I think that while Wilson is recovering, T. Higgins and Olave should be totally fine to cover for that amount of time. And then when you get Wilson back, you get a real alpha wide receiver there to join in. But the biggest reason why this trade makes sense between the two of us is that Peyton gets his cuff with Charbonnet. If anything, we've learned this season, it's securing a running back room seems to be the way. Anyone who kind of drafted their starter and handcuff feels a certain way this year than those who kind of played the game and risked it a little bit, because anyone who risked it is really now starting to regret that quite a bit. So Peyton has to pay a bit of a premium. I know the value of Charbonnet when what's his name, Kenneth Walker is out. You know, he's a running back 1 instantly. So there's a lot of mental security to that. I'm not going to give that up very easily, which is why there's a little bit of a draft tip on top of that, because the value for Charbonnet is immense for Peyton. The value for me is just another really high quality handcuff that I can start. But you know, beyond that, it's Kenneth Walker has to get out of the way for Charbonnet to really have any value. And Peyton, you know, it's the security is there. So it's an exchange of I am taking on the risk of Mike Evans. He's got this hamstring thing. There's no saying that he's better. He could also still sit out until the bye if they keep winning, which they are. Risk. I'm giving up Garrett Wilson. Not ideal timing, but he's hurt. But he will get better. It's not season ending in any way. He is the entire passing offense for the Jets, so he is the target. And then Charbonnet gives Peyton that security blanket, and in exchange he gives me Brian Robinson, who is a security blanket for other reasons, but you know, is not nearly as startable and playable as Charbonnet is, and I get a little draft dollars. It's not the sexiest trade, but I think the logic of it, at least the Charbonnet of it all, makes sense, and just trying to make the other pieces work around it. So that is that trade. That's between myself and Peyton, Charbonnet, Wilson for Evans, Robinson, and a little draft cash here and there. That's everything. That's all the holes have been filled, or at least for Act 1. For like the teams that are really missing players and missing positions, I tried to go through every single one of them and make sure that everyone had something that they were actually getting out of it or fixing some part of their team. So before I go, recapping, Mike and Alec trade. Mike trades Herbert, A.J. Brown for Daniel Jones, Dobbins, 17 draft. Jaden and Jesse trade. Jaden trades Myers in 7 draft for Kincaid. Cody and Mitch trade ETN, Henderson, Golden, $25 for Gibbs and Hollywood. Dale and Nick trade Adunze, Mason, Marks, and 17 draft for Cook. I think I cooked on that one. Christian trades with Tanner, Pollard, Metcalf, Ray Davis for Chase Brown, Devonta Smith, Hunt, and Trent, 10 draft dollars. And Cal trades with Brandon, Dart, Harvey, Adams for Lamar Jackson. And lastly, I trade with Peyton Sharbs, Wilson for Evans, Robinson, and 5 draft. That is everything. That is this week in a nutshell. Goodbye.